In 1348, Lady Margaret de Clare was convinced her unborn child would be a boy. How did she know? Because she craved salty foods? Her right breast was larger than her left. And most importantly, she held a key by its narrow end, and it spun clockwise when suspended over her belly. She was wrong. But that didn't stop medieval people from developing the most elaborate, bizarre, and sometimes deadly pregnancy superstitions in human history. If you think modern pregnancy advice is confusing, wait until you hear what medieval women endured based on astrology, urine color, and the movement of household objects. Medieval pregnancy was a terrifying gamble, with maternal mortality rates reaching 25% in some regions, and infant mortality even higher. Desperate families turned to anything that might improve their odds, including superstitions that seem absurd today but represented genuine attempts to understand and control an unpredictable process. Medieval medical theory taught that pregnancy was governed by the four humors, planetary alignments, and divine intervention. This created a complex web of beliefs where everything from the phase of the moon during conception to the color of morning urine could determine a child's fate. The stakes were enormous. In a world where male heirs determined inheritance, political power, and family survival, predicting a baby's gender wasn't casual curiosity, it was economic necessity. Noble families needed to know whether to prepare for succession or start planning another pregnancy immediately. Medieval pregnancy manuals, written by male physicians who had never experienced childbirth, contained hundreds of proven methods for determining gender, ensuring healthy births, and preventing miscarriage. These texts were copied and distributed throughout Europe, creating standardized superstitions that persisted for centuries. But the most disturbing aspect wasn't the superstitions themselves. It was how they influenced actual medical treatment, often with deadly consequences. Medieval people developed dozens of methods for predicting baby gender, each supposedly more reliable than the last. The urine test was considered scientifically sound. Pregnant women's morning urine was mixed with wine. If it stayed clear, expect a boy. If it turned cloudy, prepare for a girl. Some physicians took this further, claiming that boy urine was lighter in color, while girl urine was darker and thicker. The key test was equally popular. A key suspended over the pregnant woman's belly on a string would allegedly spin different directions based on the baby's gender. Clockwise meant boy, counterclockwise meant girl. Some versions required the woman to pick up a key from the ground. If she grabbed it by the narrow end, boy. By the wide end, girl. Physical symptoms were meticulously cataloged as gender indicators. Boys supposedly made mothers crave salty, meat-heavy foods, while girls created cravings for sweets and fruits. Boys made the right breast larger, girls enlarged the left. Boys made mother's skin glow, while girls allegedly stole their mother's beauty, causing pale complexion and hair loss. The shape of the pregnant belly provided another diagnostic tool. High, pointed bellies indicated boys. Low, wide bellies meant girls. Some believed that boys made mothers walk differently carrying boys, supposedly made women step with their right foot first, while girls made them lead with the left. Even more bizarre were the tests involving everyday objects. Pregnant women were asked to walk through doorways, while observers watched which foot crossed the threshold first. They were given choices between flowers, roses for boys, lily for girls, based on which they instinctively preferred. The wedding ring test involved suspending the woman's wedding ring over her palm. The direction and pattern of movement supposedly revealed not just the current baby's gender, but the gender of all future children based on how many times it swung. Medieval couples didn't just predict gender. They believed they could control it through timing, positioning, and environmental factors during conception. These beliefs were deadly serious, recorded in medical texts and practiced by nobility seeking male heirs. The most widespread belief involved lunar timing. Boys were supposedly conceived during the waxing moon, girls during the waning moon. Some texts specified that conception during a full moon guaranteed boys, while new moon conception produced girls. This led to elaborate scheduling of intimate relations around astronomical calculations. Seasonal timing was equally important. Spring conception allegedly favored boys because the hot, moist season matched male humoral properties. Winter conception was believed to produce girls due to the cold, moist conditions that aligned with female characteristics. Wind direction during conception was considered crucial. North winds were masculine and produced boys, while south winds were feminine and created girls. Some couples actually consulted weather patterns and delayed conception attempts based on atmospheric conditions. Dietary preparation before and during conception followed complex rules. Men seeking to father boys were advised to eat hot, dry foods like meat and spices, while avoiding cold, moist foods like fish and vegetables. Women were given opposite dietary instructions based on the belief that contrasting humoral states would produce male offspring. The positioning and behavior during conception spawned elaborate instructions that medieval couples followed religiously. Right side positioning supposedly produced boys, left side produced girls. Some texts specified exact angles, timing, and even required prayers or incantations during the act. The superstitions surrounding actual childbirth were often more dangerous than helpful, creating practices that increased rather than reduced maternal and infant mortality. Yet medieval people clung to them because they provided the illusion of control over an unpredictable process. Labor timing was considered crucial. Babies born during a waxing moon were expected to be larger and healthier. Those born during eclipses were believed cursed or destined for greatness. There was no middle ground. This led to attempts to delay or accelerate labor based on astronomical events, sometimes with fatal consequences. The birthing room required elaborate preparation to ward off evil influences. All knots in the house had to be untied knotted clothing, tied shoes, even braided hair, because knots supposedly prevented successful delivery. Windows and doors were opened to provide clear paths for the baby's soul to enter. Religious objects were arranged in specific patterns around the birthing bed. Images of saints, religious relics, and blessed candles were positioned according to complex rules. The wrong arrangement supposedly invited demonic interference or difficult labor. The most dangerous superstitions involved intervention during difficult births. If labor was prolonged, medieval midwives might place a magnet on the woman's thigh, believing it would draw the baby downward. They administered herbal concoctions that were often toxic, including preparations containing mercury, lead, and poisonous plants. Some beliefs required active physical intervention that modern medicine recognizes as harmful. Difficult births were treated by having the woman drink her husband's urine, by placing a live fish on her belly, or by making her wear her husband's clothing during labor practices that delayed proper medical intervention. The tragic reality behind these superstitions was the desperate attempt by medieval people to gain some control over processes they didn't understand. When scientific knowledge was limited and medical intervention was primitive, superstitions filled the gap between hope and helplessness. Many of these beliefs persisted because of confirmation bias. When predictions occasionally proved correct by chance, they reinforced faith in the system. When they failed, other factors were blamed. Improper execution of the ritual, interfering supernatural forces, or divine will overriding human attempts at prediction. The psychological comfort provided by these superstitions was real and important. They gave medieval families a sense of agency during pregnancy and childbirth, providing structured activities and beliefs that helped manage anxiety during dangerous times. However, the medical harm was substantial. Dangerous herbal preparations, delayed medical intervention, and harmful physical practices based on superstitious beliefs contributed to the high maternal and infant mortality rates that characterized medieval childbirth. The The social pressure to follow these practices was intense. Women who refused common superstitions risked being blamed if pregnancies or births went badly. This created systems where harmful practices were reinforced by community expectations and fear of social consequences. Medieval pregnancy superstitions reveal humanity's eternal struggle to understand and control biological processes that remain mysterious even today. While we've replaced urine-wine mixtures with ultrasounds and astrology with genetic testing, the fundamental desire to predict and influence pregnancy outcomes remains unchanged. Some medieval observations accidentally contained kernels of truth. Dietary health during pregnancy does matter. Stress affects outcomes, and careful attention to physical symptoms can indicate problems. But these insights were buried under layers of superstition and pseudoscience that often did more harm than good. The story of medieval pregnancy beliefs reminds us that even well-intentioned practices can be harmful when based on incorrect assumptions. It also demonstrates how desperation and hope can lead people to embrace elaborate systems of belief, even when evidence for their effectiveness is minimal. Understanding these historical superstitions provides perspective on how medical knowledge develops and how cultural beliefs influence healthcare practices. It reminds us to approach both historical and contemporary medical claims with appropriate skepticism, while recognizing the human needs that drive the search for certainty in uncertain times. What's the strangest pregnancy superstition you've ever heard? Drop it in the comments, medieval or modern. And if you want more bizarre medieval medical beliefs, check out our video on medieval dentistry horrors. Trust me, you'll never complain about modern dental care again.